All right, y'all, before I get into this, apologies for a little bit of sabbatical. For one, not a lot of good games last week. Two, I'm in the middle of a move. So as you can see, we're kind of rebuilding the set currently in the living room. But we're going to hopefully get back to some consistency in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Cross your fingers on that. No promises. But until then, let's get into it. Best team of the week I've probably done. Let's go.
I need all the wins, yeah. Ain't no L's, I gotta get a no call and quits, yeah. Gotta keep on moving no matter how hard.
Here comes Danny Tuccizola, back to Baker, Baker with the fin. Kurt Baker in for DC, and this may well do it old glory with the try. The New Zealand Sevens legend, Kurt Baker with the cherry on top.
Can you believe it?
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the On the Line Rugby Podcast, a show brought to you by the Believe Sports Network. I'm your host, Mike Nagaishi, and welcome back. I think the first thing I got to say is congratulations to the Melbourne Rebels. You know, I almost gave up on you guys. Dark horse team, but you managed to not only exceed my expectations, you managed to make it to the top 4. Props off to you. You know, I think Kevin Foote needs to get his flowers as, you know, the Rebs have never been this good. And I said they deserve a Cinderella story. Yeah, they're kind of mired in some alternate controversy, not counting the courtroom case. We're not really going to talk about that. That was last week's news. It's not really that big. I think if anyone of you cared to look, you probably would have done it already. But it's really, really good to see them back on front football. You know, I think Ryan Lawrence is really coming into his own as the 9 battle could turn interesting, really, as Tate McDermott I'm not going to say he's fallen off, but I will say he's had a lot of heavier competition coming into this year. Ryan Lawrence is one of them. His sniping skills are starting to become legendary, in my personal opinion, for the Australian teams. And I really think he could push for that 9 jersey with Tate. I don't think that Nick White really has it anymore. So I think that's his spot to lose. And it'll be interesting to see. I really thought that normal danger-prone Daphne, Andrew Kellaway, really showed out again this week. You know, he was very unselfish. He set up a lot of opportunities with, obviously, his probing attack, but also just taking the necessary shots when and where it was needed to make it happen. Whether it was tossing the ball extremely late and taking a shoulder to the dome, whether it was throwing the wild pass that skipped 2 defenders and got over to the line, I was impressed all the way through. Kellaway has really come out of his, you know, making the mess up and possibly cost your team the game into this new player that I really love watching in this league. And it's really nice to see him develop into that way. I think the kid, Darby Lancaster, looked absolutely menacing as well. I think he's 20 years old, if I'm not mistaken, from reading my research. But for a guy to be that young and get a hat trick, I mean, yes, okay, it was against the Landers, who aren't necessarily the greatest team, but I think you can't not applaud the kid for doing the right things. He was at every tackle, really helping at the breakdown, and on top of that, he ran great support lines. He was always looking for the ball, never really called it, but if it came his way, he was happy to score it. I can't knock it. The guy is there, and if he can give himself more opportunities like that, I really think that the Rebels can be an interesting player as long as they can keep Kellaway in the back. Yes, I know Kellaway was originally a wing, but I think he's really developing into that role at 15 to be able to manage the field, and not only that, but push the attack out wider than what they're used to. And with the Rebels kind of getting back to the, I'm not going to quote the Matt Giddo days, but, you know, kind of flirting with it, you have opportunities there, especially with the unfortunate, I want to hit the panic button on the former homie Carter Gordon. You know, I'm not going to say I was disappointed, but I will say I'm very concerned with his position this year. A lot of it is manic highs and manic lows. The dude's bipolar when he plays. I still think it's because of just the mismanagement that he had at the World Cup and the lack of confidence. He's missing most of his goals on goals. I would say he's one of the worst kickers right now in the Australian Conference, and it shows. Like, yes, his team was kept in the game, and he did kind of get himself back off the tee, but it's not looking that great. His managerial skills are either very frantic or very concerned and very, you know, well-paced, I guess, versus, you know, if you look at any other guy like Ben Donaldson, who's looked relatively at least consistent, you know, average to semi below, you never know what you're going to get with Carter, and I think that's worrisome. If you take out the 2 scores he had this week, it wasn't a great performance all in all, and I think I would probably give him like a overall, like a 6.2, 62 out of 100. I guess we're doing like a Madden overall or 2K overall. It's not great. So we're definitely going to need to see the jury kind of develop in that spot just to see where he can go. Obviously there's a lot more ball to play. There's about like a month and change left in Super Rugby. So he has time to really clean it up. But if he doesn't really, just outside of a fantasy standpoint, be able to really manage concertedly the entirety of the attack and play the way he does on defense, he looked good in the early weeks on defense. I really applauded him for it. Now he's looking very meek, very reserved on that defensive line, and it's kind of worrisome. I hope Kevin Foote can really put him down into the gutters, the dregs, do whatever you got to do to put his head in a dark place to make a play again, because I want to see that happy Carter Gordon that ran in scores and basically almost willed the Rebels to upset the Drew at home. He's still there. He's not gone. I'm not going to go along the lines and say he's like a Matt Corral or a Mac Jones for any of my football fans out there, but he can get there if you don't take care of him. Yeah, okay, I know you can coach him hard, but baby him a little bit, maybe, and just see where he goes, because he can be that dynamic player. I still think that he should be the 10 for the Wallabies, but they're not really going to be a team if your 10's not there. So knock on wood, let's see how he plays in the next few weeks, and hopefully I will be proven wrong. In that regard, let's stay in Australia for just, I'm not going to say disappointing, but I will say, it's a polite word I'm looking for. Disconcerting, I guess. Type of game from the Reds, versus Moana Pacifica. I really expected them to kind of just run away with this game. I know Moana Pacifica is on the hot streak. I know over the last 2 weeks they've been looking really, really good, especially with the back of Julian Savea. But the Reds have a quality team. You have Tate McDermott, you have Matt Fessler, you have the two scrummy Red boys, and Fraser McWright and Harry Wilson, obviously, and they're quality players. Obviously, you have Jordan Pataya, you have Josh Fluke. The names really just go on and on. But I think they let this game go to their head. They maybe came into this game with the foot off the gas, and they let this team manhandle them in all fronts. I really thought it was too snippy for the Reds' own good. Whether you had Fraser McWright going off, you had for a high tackle. How are you a pro and can't avoid a non-mitigating tackle? That was a very avoidable hit. Come on now. Then on top of that, Tate McDermott, I understand you took offense to that fend in the throat, and that was bad by all means. I probably would have given him at least a penalty for that just in general. But if you've seen what Frank Lomani did, you cannot retaliate. Most people are going to only catch the retaliation, and by that time it's too late. You've already done what the team wanted you to do, and you cost your team a dub. And I think that's worrisome when you look at what he can do. Yes, Tate McDermott is that G, but he can only do so much. And with him obviously off the field, the best availability is dependability, and you're not there. And if you're not there on the field to help counter the attack and help this team win, what are you really doing? They're already missing JOC. You can't really do much sitting on a chair. So given that all it is, I really think they gave the game away in goal-to-goal opportunities as well. If you look at what the penalty sheet was for them, not only did they not put themselves in good spots with good possessions with their penalty margins being the way they are, but also if you look at when they got the ball in opportunity presented itself in Moana's territory, or Moana gave up the ball in a decisive area, they did not really capitalize on it, whether it was off the tee or really off the corner. Moana is going to have those magical moments where they're going to score. They have a good set of forwards that can pound that ball. They really needed to get that together, and they just couldn't really translate it for whatever reason it was. Also, just a little sidebar, I guess. I'm not sure how bad the Josh Fluke injury is, but given the way he was down and grabbing that shoulder as late as it was in the game, I'm a little concerned, not only because I'm a fantasy owner of him, but also as a Super Rugby watcher. Josh Fluke is one of those players who is great off the ball, but especially with the ball in hand. He always runs great lines. He sets himself up for positions to success, whether it was catching a crossfield kick, running the ball down the field, setting up support lines for his players. He's always there. And he's, I would say, the linchpin of this attack when it comes into the back line. Yes, you have Jordan Pataya, but he's not always the most available. Josh Fluke is there, and that hit did not look pretty, especially as high as it was. I'm surprised they didn't go for at least a penalty or a card in that regard for that. But I think it'll be interesting to see where his development in terms of the injury and not only that, his recovery goes. Hopefully the scope is not too good or not too bad, I guess, and he recovers quickly. But let's all cross our fingers for that. As we move into more of the New Zealand teams, I only really enjoyed two of those, so we'll discuss that. First off, I guess it kind of keeping in Australia, but hats off to the Taz. Hats off to the Taz and Amy Park to really show up and show out against a floundering Satyrs team that I believe was in 11th place for like the hottest second, and then managed to get a bonus point loss. So the Satyrs pretty much relied on two people, Sevu Reece, and they immediately relied late in the game on Levi Aumua. Now, Levi Aumua has not been the greatest signing, in my opinion, for the Satyrs. For the amount of money you gave the guy, I think he should have stayed in Moana Pacifica. I know he wants to be an All Black, but whether it's the training opportunities, the amount of reps he's getting in practice, I'm just not seeing the gel that he's having on the field with his teammates. When he does get the ball late, yeah, he kind of shows out, but it's only been recently. And he hasn't been getting fed early in a lot of these games. So I think he's more of, for my NFL fans, an Adrian Peterson type player, where the more you feed him the ball, the more tired the defense is going to get. And that just feeds into opportunities for everyone else. Now, I know Levi can be a baller, so hopefully he can turn this around. But it's not looking the hottest for him this year. For him to score only one try this late into the year, despite almost having the leading try margin last year, a little disappointing. Not only as a fantasy owner, but just watching him as a fan. I wish he was on Moana. I think it would benefit them a lot to have him back on the field. And hopefully he goes there, because Rob Penny is not it. But as for Sevu Reece, I feel like I have to give him the nod for MVP of this game. Despite basically losing the game, he was not the reason why they lost in any sense of the word. He is a stud. I know that. I know he has a polarizing background. We all know this for our experienced fans. I shouldn't have to explain this to you, but how did he look like that? I think when you look at the field, I understand the Waratahs are normally a rung below when it comes to overall talent, but D should have been planning all day for this guy to come on the field. He's the home run hitter for this team, and you let him do that to you? I mean, that guy set up, 3-4 tries, 2 by himself, guarantee scores. You had him tackling out of bounds, throwing offloads wildly like he was Sonny Bill Williams. I don't know what DC was doing, but defense should have been on him. I don't understand how you can line up Tane Edmond on him. I know Tane Edmond's pretty good, but he is not going to be able to 90% of the time to tackle Sevu Reece, and he put a bump foot on him that probably changed the way he looked at this game. On defense, I can't say it enough. Sevu Reece has been a freak all year, whether it's try-saving tackles, really setting up turnover, and getting in there. There's not a lot of backs that I can say I respect for doing a forge job, and he's one of them. This year's really changed my mind as to how I watch him play. And hats off to you. I understand that you guys lost, but it wasn't your fault. I think the biggest thing that I need to discuss with you guys about how this game went is, to me, I think that Crusaders kind of sold this game. I'm not going to say why yet, but how did you do that? Like, to give up that many penalties early to the Taz not even capitalized on it. Yes, I know Tane Edmond was kicking off the tee very well, but I feel like with a lot of those things, it should have been a scrum, a scrum, more driving mauls that I know they did late with Charlie Gamble, but it's not the same. You need to be able to pound that rock early. You had opportunities to kick for corner. You guys should be backing yourselves. They have Harry Johnson Holmes. You probably had the better, in my personal opinion, forward pack in that group. Why don't you take the opportunities to take front football, back yourselves up, put them in a corner, and say, hey, I'm going to punch you in the mouth with this. What are you going to do? Stop me. and they just didn't do it. They chose to go conservative, and it almost bit them in the end. So given that, I think they need to look really at the drawing board as to how they're going to succeed. I think you need to let Tane Edmond off the leash a little bit. I know I have patently said normally before that Tane Edmond is kind of a game manager, but if you win the games where they've put the ball in his hands, like for example in the Rebels game, in the Moana Pacifica game, and specifically in the Reds game, they went off. Tane Edmond can be that probing player that I think is the Wallaby 10 jersey right now for him to lose. You have a broken Carter Gordon, JOC who's still out. Ben Donaldson is up and down, but he's kind of looking like below average right now. It's kind of honestly looking like the Waratahs kind of won out on that trade just a little bit. And that's really it. I mean, who else you really got? You got Lina. He's okay. Lolesio, I still don't think he's it. But I guess you could throw him on the bench. He's pretty much the best option in town. He deserves the green and gold jersey in the next few months, but he deserves a spot to let him loose off the leash. I don't understand why they don't do it. As for why they sold the game, I really think Johnny McNichol gave this game away for them. How can you just basically try to do an OBJ, overrun the line, and then just fall down? I know this team was on the hot foot, and you gave Will Harrison an opportunity to basically do a Cinderella game, i.e. in the magical terms of Chris Mattina sending the Utah Warriors out the pasture. But what are you doing? You had the game in your hands, and you gave it up. All I gotta say, stop being a little eager. You need to do better. As for what I really like to see from the Taz, as I would like to say, there are a few people on the Taz that I think have leadership potential. And not only that, the exponential ability, which not a lot of Australian players have, to lift up your team. And I think they have two guys on that team. They obviously have Will Harrison, who's a stud. He comes off of injury over the last 3 years, is one of the best recovery stories probably in Super Rugby, definitely in the world, for at least for this year alone. And he comes in and he's a freak in every appearance off the bench. I think the only thing holding them back is the ability for DC to say, I want Tane Edmond to lead this team. And it shows. When Harrison has the ball in hand, I think the attack moves a little bit more laterally than with Tane Edmond, which is more structure based off of Jake Gordon and friends. And he allows for a little bit more freehand. And I think it's nice to see. They each bring their different flavors. You can enjoy both, or you can hate one and love the other. It really doesn't matter. But Will Harrison's ability to just develop that locker room, and not only that, I think he brings a lot for the development of Tane Edmond, is going to be huge for this year. This is probably the biggest jump I've seen him do in the 2 years that he's played. And I can only say that the sky's the limit for this guy. And Will Harrison's going to be there. And I hope that he gets a starting nod at least in one game during the Blood is Low or Autumn Nations, just because he seems to still be in form. And you really can't knock the guy for trying, especially with Joe Schmidt on that team. I think they're going to find great combinations if you put him there, and it would be an interesting game to watch. Also, can I just say that Dylan Page is him? Okay. I did not expect him to do the litany of things like Sefer Reese that he did. I think he's another one of those backs that I think plays like a forward. Obviously, for his age and for his size, the guy runs still with a lot of pace. If there wasn't no Mark Nawani-Tawase on that team, I would say he's probably still the fastest player on the Taz. And it shows every time, whether he's running support lines, whether he's running dummies, playing in the breakdown, helping in support, running these amazing distributing lines that he helps set up the attack out wide, playing on defense. The guy hits like a bus. I love to see it. Old guys running out there playing the way that he does. Hats off to you, Dylan Page. As for the last game that I really think needs to really no fanfare is the Chiefs versus the Canes. I honestly was a little disappointed in the Chiefs' performance. Despite the Canes dominating the early 30, they failed to capitalize on the carded player in the red card that really left the Chiefs open for this comeback. And they didn't take any advantage of it whatsoever. I think that the Chiefs played just too frantic for their own good. If you looked at the way they played, D-Mac was playing more, I would say, more flat, and he wasn't really taking the ball into the line as well as I'd hoped. The ball's getting passed around way too much, And I think he should have stayed more in hand. When you look at guys like Romeka Pohempe, who basically had to come in for ALB, who was out with an illness that really hurt my fantasy team, by the way. It's how are you going to get good front football when you have guys, like Cortez Alatima? These guys need to be fed the ball. Sean Stevenson, only got 5 points and he barely touched the ball. Tenenana Seturo was mostly used as a dummy. What's up with that? You're not feeding your best players on a good day. This is essentially the Super Rugby Championship, if you will. Unless the Taz or the Drew can pull off something magical, probably this is going to be it. And if this is what a preview of the next month's game is going to be, I'm a little disappointed. And I think it's going to be an easy win for the Canes next time. Despite the Chiefs' disruption at breakdown and line out, I was really just impressed with how the quick ball that the Canes just managed to thrive on all day. It contributed to everything that they played with, and especially having TJ Perinara in for the injured Cam Roygaard. Stud. Still him. Richard Judd coming off the bench. Amazing. And lining up Aumua on Tenenana Seturo and Quinn Tupaya is sacrilegious. It's another instance of Severis versus Tane Edmed. Why are you going to put one of the biggest athletic player you probably have on that team in Asafo Aumua on Tenenana Seturo, who's only known for his steps, not really for his defense, and Quinn Tupaya, who's lost a bunch of weight off of that knee injury? And I would be afraid to put in a breakdown myself. Why? Are you guys not looking at stat lines? Could you not maybe have put, I don't know, Callum Boshier, Luke Jacobson, anybody? Put a big boy on him. Put George Dyer on him. Just put an airbag. At least they'd play good cover defense, because you're not going to do that all day. And Aumua lit it up all across the park. Very impressed with him, though. I still think that the Hurricanes scrum and lineouts is probably what is carrying them a lot. Yes, I know they have Brett Cameron, who is one of the better game managers in Super Rugby. And yes, I know they have Jordy Barrett for a limited time only, by the way. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But, man, if this is the final, Chiefs, you need to step your game up. Clayton McMillan, go back to the drawing board. I know you guys have hope, but the jury's out for me as to how you're going to win this game. Because if they're going to demolish you the way they did, it's going to happen again, and they're just going to say, we're going to put the best 23 out on the field. Stop me. And especially if it's held at home in Wellington, good luck to you guys, because this is probably one of the easier Super Rugbies that I've seen championship-wise in a long time. As for my team of the week, I really think this is probably the most balanced one, given the fact of Australia's surprising appearances a lot in this list. But I think a lot of these guys really need no breakdown as to why they're there. Xavier Numia, pretty much automatic. Safo Aumua, after what I said and after watching the highlights and the game, come on. You have to put him in there. Harry Johnson-Holmes, I think, deserved to be in that 3 spot just because of the fact that not only was he great in attack, he was great on defense. And on top of that, he was really leading the attack. I can't knock him. Without having Angus Bell there, he's really stepped into that role that I think needed to be done. And hats off to you, my boy. You deserve to be in there. Lukan Salakaya Loto, I've already said he's probably the best signing in Super Rugby for this year. Bomfa, up the boys, and you're going to be there. Jed Holloway, just consistency. What can I say? He may be old, but let the old man play, because he's balling out in every way, shape, and form for the Taz, really helping to carry that team. Ned Hannigan, really young player coming into the Taz, and I loved watching him work, whether it's at the breakdown, at set piece, especially with the ball in hand. He really sets himself up in good positions to win at every margin, and it's great to see. Peter Lockeye. Yeah, he didn't show up really on the highlights, but when you look at how he did in goal line defense versus the Chiefs, in the breakdown, scoring penalties, and just getting front football, the guy was there at every step of the way. So he deserves 7. Braden Iose, I really think, deserved that 8 spot, not just because of the 2 tries he basically scored by himself, but just because of the development ever since the last, 3 weeks that I said he was kind of floundering or plateauing out in that spot. He's balling in every sense of the word now, and it's good to see him back to what I thought he was. I just need to see more line breaks. Just do that for me, please. Thank you. 9, I think Ryan Lawrence deserved this spot. Like I said, he's basically competing for this for his life in the green and gold, and I think he has a very good inside chance at making that starting spot. Tane Edmond at 10, let the man off the leash. This guy can ball. Severis needs no introduction. Billy Proctor, I think, was an interesting pick at 12. I was really debating on this, but I think Billy in that game versus the Chiefs really showed off what he can do as a support ball runner. Whether it's having the ability to offload late, going to ground, to set up another player going down the field off a break, whether it's supporting another break in the wing or just playing defense. Billy Proctor was there in every step of the way. Same kind of like the 13 jersey, who I know kind of plays Moonlight his wing, but he's basically a 13 in AJ Lamb. What can I say that hasn't been said already about him? Just his ability to really manage the field and play in the breaks. I know it was a bye week and it was kind of hard to pick for 13. So, oh well. And especially with Fluke gone, you really had no options. But yeah, AJ Lamb is really transitioning into that role. And I love watching him play now. It's good to see him play in open field as well. As for 14, he really could have been 15, but Max Jorgensen, just because of the fact that, he used to be wing last year, but looking at him now, I think he's born to be in that 15 jersey for the Taz and especially for the Wallabies, just because if you look at how he plays very well off the ball. He has a thunderous leg to be able to manage the kicks. He has great timing when it comes to offloads, and he's a threat with ball in hand. It kind of works all around. I love to see Max Jorgensen play. As for Ruben Love, again, I know he didn't really show up in the stat sheet, but, as for Ruben Love, again, I understand he didn't really show up in the stat sheet, but when you look at how he played, again, keep himself involved in every sense of the word. Got to put him in here. As for Sam Talakai, I think he deserved to be here. I really loved watching him play ever since I started watching rugby. Great prop. He's really taking it into his team to be the captain, and he plays exceptionally well in all facets as a prop, and I can't knock him for that. Jordan Uwalesi, loved watching him play, especially off a set piece. The dude's a menace. You have Tyrell Lomax, who is just a freak at scrum time. Love watching him play. Caleb Delaney, I think when he's on the field is more better as a ball in hand player than he is at set piece, but he offers a great skill set for the Canes in that regard. As for my 22 to 23, I went with a split backfield of 4-4, and I'll just rattle them off. Dylan Page had to be there. Darby Lancaster, I think, had to be there with his hat trick. Josh Morby is Josh Morby. The guy is him. And Andrew Kellaway, I couldn't leave him off this list given what I said. As for the news, we have Fergus Burke to Saracens. Obviously, they expected him to return week 8, but he just didn't show. He is expected to play in the NPC and Super Rugby and then leave during the autumn tests. I would love to see him suit up in the All Blacks jersey at least once for Razor, but, I guess, we can't always get what we want in life. I think he's a big upgrade to the Reds up north, despite the loss of Faz to Racing 92. Fergus Burke is that dude. I really think that he should have been the 10 for this year, but with Revez Rehana kind of, I guess, either Rob Penny's idea not in form or he just likes Hohempa for whatever reason. I think this leaves a revolving door at 10 for the Satyrs for a long time. He's going to be signed for 3 years. So good luck figuring that out, Rob. You're probably going to be out of there before long. So don't count your blessings yet. As for the last one, I think this is the biggest news that came out in the last couple of days is Jordy Barrett to Leinster. He's going to arrive in December after Autumn Nations. He'll only really be spending the 2025 season there, but he's making $1.5 million, which is huge. And despite really playing in the more physical conference, obviously in the Six Nations and the URC he's gonna ball out. I just don't know where he's gonna play. If you look at where he's played his entire career, yes, he's played a little bit 10. He's played mostly 12 in the last 2 years. But if you look at it, I think he's thrived more at 15 than he does at 12. That's just me personally. But oh well. I think it'll be really interesting to see his development. Obviously, Leinster has great coaching for backs. They already have a loaded backfield. And I guess that throws in a little bit of intrigue as to where he's going to slot in. You already have Gary Ringrose, you have Robbie Henshaw, and you have Hugo Keenan in those spots. I don't think he's going to dethrone them. I think his real opportunity is going to be when Six Nations comes up and playing in their stead, and then maybe slotting in off the bench. So maybe this is more of a bag trip than it is to play. But hey, I'll take it where credit's due. The guy's going to ball out. Let the guy play. And, he has a very special relationship to Ireland. So maybe he'll end up switching, showing a low. But, oh well. But that's going to be it for me this week, guys. Thanks so much. And I'll see you hopefully next week. Peace.